Hey everybody, welcome back. We're here at EVO Japan. I have another interview for you gamers. Who am I with and what do you do and why is this awesome?
My name's Eugene Kang. I'm the audio director of this game. Why is this awesome? I mean, we're here at EVO Japan, man. We're playable. We got a Laui. We got a new stage.
Yeah, let's start there actually, because the other two stages we've played before, right? There's a new stage, which means new music. What's it like? I'm assuming, here, everybody on the floor, it's a little tough to hear the audio thing. So as an audio director, how are you feeling when everybody's playing the game and they're not listening to the audio, but then I see it at home, everybody's listening to it finally, so you're like, oh, you gotta wait for the internet to wake up and get a chance to hear it.
For sure. Actually, so this was something that we kind of anticipated, not just in like a big loud place like this, but just in general, like because sound effects and VO in a fighting game are always going to come up and just like kind of get in the way of music and then kind of settle back down. The big thing that we really wanted to make sure was that you could, over anything else, you could hear the pulse. Because as long as the overall pulse of the music is clear, that kind of allows your brain to kind of reach normalcy again faster. The longer it takes for your brain to kind of like reach that place of normalcy, the more chaotic it feels. And so the fact that I can at least still hear the pulse over all this stuff going on across all these different speakers, it actually makes me feel like, okay, cool, we did our job.
Yeah, and how do you figure that out? Because obviously Riot has made a lot of music in their lives for all kinds of different projects and stuff, so that you've been involved with other stuff that the company has done. So when you're coming to a project like this, which is, a fighting game and you're trying to create something specific for this, what's like the process of like finding that pulse and like that feeling of like, okay, this is fighting game music, and not only that, but it's fighting game music on like this Bilgewater stage at this bar. Like, yeah, it's like a whole thing, I have to imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, it was mostly about figuring out how to make room for the pulse first, and there are a bunch of different ways of doing that. A big thing for us was actually figuring out sort of the production style, making sure that things can like be really bright, and that's where we can kind of like cheat and get more energy where we can without kind of interrupting that feel of the pulse. And so that was kind of a big thing for us in terms of matching it together with all the different sort of like feels, because you go to the Ionia stage, you hear a bunch of like East Asian instruments, you go to Bilgewater, you hear a bunch of party instruments. A lot of being able to figure out where we can kind of nestle in those details where they can like really show up. Like you start Ionia, we immediately hit you with just like dun 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 dun, dun, like you can hear that instrument like very clearly. That whole like string motif they hear for the Bilgewater stage, we were just able to pick and choose like where to have those elements. Yeah.
Is it challenging or more challenging or less challenging if it's something that you're already comfortable with? Like, oh, Ionia sounds like this in League of Legends, right? But like when you go to something like different, we don't have an example of what this sounds like, or we're trying to figure out the sound for this thing, and so you have to create it, right? Is that more or less challenging than something that you already kind of know what to expect?
Yeah, so, well, fortunately for us, pretty much everything that we've made music for has some kind of music representation from League of Legends and stuff. So we haven't had to start from scratch. However, we did pick a few places where we could kind of take some liberties. So I guess an example would be the Piltover bridge stage. Piltover is mostly known for a lot of like, you hear like harpsichord and strings and stuff like that. We didn't have any of that. We actually kind of went full on kind of like electro metal kind of a feel. That was something that we wanted to do because we wanted to focus on like nighttime, and it was also kind of a stress test for us to see like how much metal we can like kind of get to sit in the mix for it to still feel good. That was kind of a playground for us. It ended up sticking actually, so yeah.
Something I thought that was really interesting that Alex mentioned, Alex Jaffe, about the gameplay design was like, when you're creating stuff like this, fighting games are really like evoking the true feeling of the character, right? The core of the character, and like how it feels to play a champion in this game is like how it should feel. You're moving the character around. It's so like, there's so much feedback, right? Yeah. When you're designing music, do you sort of feel the same way? Like this is a fight, a scrap between these characters? Is it that kind of evoked feeling? Or is it just like, no, I'm working on, an Ionian stage or like a Piltover stage and, it's the same kind of thing?
Yeah, I never really thought of it that way because so much of the initial music direction choices were very like functional based, like the whole emphasis on pulse that I mentioned earlier. That's kind of how we approach everything. Not really from a fight, but it's just kind of like, hey, like we just try to get as much energy as we possibly can, but we always kind of fall back to just being like, we need to be able to hear a pulse, we need to be able to hear a pulse. And so that's where we approach it from first. And that approach kind of allows us to be a bit more flexible with all the different sort of like rune terrain or the different kind of sounds that we have in League of Legends. So that's where the angle that we take it from, yeah.
Right, and one thing that I wanted to ask about was the character select theme.
Oh yeah.
Because everybody, I think, heard it for the first time back in Vegas, and it's obviously still here. What goes into making like the perfect character select theme? Because it's to me the song that I will almost hear the most, especially as a commentator, like a little peek behind the curtain when we're waiting backstage to start a show. We're just stuck on character select. So I'm sitting there listening to the character select for whatever game I'm commentating, thousands of hours of it. So like what goes into making the perfect character select theme?
First you gotta get the perfect person, Trey Watson. He's the composer that did the character select theme. I've worked with Trey here and there for Pentakill and stuff in the past. I think for most of our music, we don't look directly at what a lot of fighting games music has done in the past because our goals have been so different. But for moments like character select, all the references we had were from fighting games because we knew that since there's not as much gameplay happening, this area has been explored so much in the past. What did fighting games do really, really well? And so like we love like the Alpha 2 character select screen, the Uni character select screen, the Plus R character select screen. Just a lot of, because we have, Tekken 7 Season 2 and 4. It's just, you have so much space to just kind of like be the craziest. And in general, for gameplay music, we want to have like, the rule was to try to get the intensity to be right under the gameplay intensity, but for character select, we were actually kind of like, that restriction does not apply.
Yeah.
Just go nuts. And so that's exactly what Trey did.
That makes a lot of sense. Is it harder to work with a shorter loop, like a character select, or something that's a little bit more like longer, like the stages?
They have their different challenges. I would say the biggest challenge of having a shorter song is to try to work on sort of the introduction, like kind of going into that energy, because if you just kind of come out the gate with just like da-na-na, like just in your, it's just not going to work. And so also kind of keeping in mind what the sort of UX flow is like. If you're just kind of like listening or to something or doing something before and then you just go to character select screen, it just kind of jump scares you. You don't want to do that. Uni has that piano run that happens. Alpha 2, dun, 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 and you know, just those kind of intros is something that we took a lot of inspiration from making it. So that was kind of the big challenge for us.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Final question.
Yeah.
Is your favorite piece of music in the game in this build or not?
My favorite piece, that's a good question.
Yeah, what's
My
your favorite piece? Maybe you haven't thought about it.
favorite piece of music so far is not in this build. I can't say what it is.
Of course. Okay, fair enough. So that means everybody has something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, that is really cool.
Yeah.
All right, final things about the music. Anything that you saw from feedback maybe here or at home that really fills you with like the, oh God, I'm making a video game and people finally got to listen to it and they think it's neat? Like, is that a nice feeling?
Yeah, I mean, like I've been playing fighting games since 2004, since Third Strike, and like it's kind of been my dream to work on a fighting game, and this is like one of the biggest ones, and so it's been great. Yeah, it's been really rewarding to see like how people have been feeling and stuff. I think one of the things that filled me with a lot of joy was seeing Maximilian talk about one of the sounds that I made, the handshake tag sound. He said it sounds like an ass slap. And I was just kind of like, yeah, okay. Yeah, we're doing it. So many other comments about like the music, like the voiceover, sound effects, like it's been really cool just like after all these years of just kind of like stewing on the same sort of like theories and style guides and all that stuff that I put together, and just like seeing it actually be put into practice and then people actually reacting to it positively, like that's been pretty amazing. And so yeah, it feels like it's been a long time coming, and I'm really glad.
All the music's really awesome. I like it a lot. Hopefully you've been enjoying all these interviews, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to EVO Japan. We'll catch you guys with more stuff in just a little bit.